This is the story of Jesse Morrow Mountain, the gateway sentinel to the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks in Central California, and the people who are trying to save it from destruction at the hands of the Cemex Corporation. You'll hear from local San Joaquin Valley residents, a farmer, a dentist, a rancher, an advocate for the 180 Scenic Highway, members of the Choinumni tribe, a retired NASA scientist, a winemaker, an ag business owner. Unscripted, from the heart.
In downtown Fresno, when you look out, about 1/10 of your view is Jesse Morrow Mountain. It's massive. And if you can see it that huge from Fresno, imagine when you get up close to it. When you look up at the Sierras in the evening, you leave the valley light and all of that stuff, and you look up, and in that dusk time, just as evening approaches, you can kind of see a glow of the snow, and then slowly the lights dim down. Jesse Morrow, that silhouette is so massive and so beautiful. 24-hour, round-the-clock, 100-year proposal with the option to continue beyond the 100 years.
Farmers today are not any different today than I think they were a century ago. You have to protect the land. You have to be able to provide and nurture that land. You have to protect it in a way that it will be a reoccurring resource for you. It isn't like a production line that goes through one time and you lose it. Land is from year to year. You have to protect it, nurture it. You do like you do your children, your family. You nurture your children, you nurture your family, and you have a legacy. And the same thing occurs to agricultural land production. You protect your land, you nurture it, and you have it not for this generation, but for other generations.
If you see a map of how the air circulates in the valley, it goes down the valley and comes across to the east side and then back up along the mountains and back out over Fresno, and there's a big circulating path in that area. And what you see is if you are blasting off the top of a mountain like this when you're mining, you're going to have a lot of pollutants that are going to be getting into the air. Cemex has said that they're going to use water misters and things like that to help mitigate the dust and help control the dust. But the problem is they're going to be blasting up on top of the mountain, and you can't put a blanket over it. Anytime you take air that's flowing and you squeeze it between two objects, in this case mountain, you increase the speed of the wind. And that works in both directions. That works in the direction of coming in from Fresno and going up into the sequoias. And that's one of the problems that they have in the sequoias, is that they're seeing damage to the trees. If you talk to the National Forest people, that they've seen tremendous damage to the trees because of the pollution that's getting blown up into the parks. And it works the other way around. You get air coming back down. When you get the heavy air above us, it comes back down through and goes back into Fresno. Cemex has said, well, they're actually going to reduce the pollution in the area, believe it or not, by mining this area. And their theory is that because they won't be trucking aggregate in from like Coalinga and Madera to this area, actually by mining it here and trucking it locally, they'll reduce the pollution. But when you're talking about a mine, the scale that they're talking about here, and the fact that they can truck the aggregate out of the area, there's no limits on that, it just doesn't wash. Normal bench mining starts from the bottom of the mountain and digs back in and creates a flat area back in, and it'll go about 50 feet up, and then they'll dig in again. And that's the way you see normal bench mining. In this case, they weren't allowed to do that, so they're trying a new technique that they have never done anywhere before, which is to bench mine from the top of the mountain down. Their idea is to create a plateau up on top and then dig down and go across that plateau, creating a 50-foot notch each time they do it, and then later come back and knock off the edges of the 50-foot benches to reclaim it back into a slope. They're going to have a large plant facility that's at an elevation of about 500 feet, which the Highway 180 is about 380 around that. It varies a little bit there, but it's around 380 feet. So the plant is going to be a couple hundred feet maybe above what the highway is going to be, and they say, well, they're going to put berms in to help mitigate the visual. But in the county's own summary of the draft EIR, it states that this is one of the areas that is going to be unavoidable. And you're going to see a lot of equipment there. They're going to put a berm in, but you're going to have large towers. There's going to be an asphalt recycling plant there, so you're going to have trucks trucking in rubble, basically asphalt rubble, to be ground up again and reworked and put out as asphalt again. So you're going to have a full asphalt plant there. You're going to have all of these towers. A lot of aggregate's going to be processed there. You're also going to have a rock crushing plant basically on the top of the mountain that is going to crush the rock into small enough size that they can bring it down the mountain. 100-ton trucks. Those are those huge, huge off-road trucks that have tires taller. They're 8 feet plus tall. And they're going to be hauling those down. They're going to have, they said, 7 to 9 of those going up and down the face, the south face of Jesse Morrow Mountain on a daily basis. You're going to have dust in the air no matter how much you try dust control. You're going to have odors in the air because you've got an asphalt recycling plant. And you have tourists coming right by. You're maybe 300 feet from the plant. You're going to smell things. You're going to have a lot of particulate matter in the air. That's another problem for the asthma. You have different size particulates, and you'll have all of them there. They divide it into PM10s, which are 10 micron, and you have 2.5s. The 2.5 is a much smaller size particulate, and it gets all the way down into your lung sacs. And so that's what's the worst kind you can get. And they say, well, the noise is going to be within acceptable limits, kind of like if you're at a very busy intersection, the kind of noise you get that way. But when you have rock crushers, you have blasting, you have very large dump trucks going up and down that hill, you're going to have 18-wheelers coming in and out of that place, you know, you're going to have a lot of noise factor. Other thing is that is going to be a major concern on the highway traffic. According to Caltrans themselves, the traffic already on that road exceeds what they consider a safe limit. And if you're going to put anywhere from, they say, 400 plus trucks to start with, and in the DEIR it has that there could be as many as 925 is one point that they talk about in summer months in there. So if you're adding even 400 or 500 trucks, if you run that on an 8-hour day, you figure how many you have per minute, basically. You've got a lot of trucks on the road. And this already is a problem here because in the summer months you have tourist bus going up there, you have rented motorhomes and those types of things. You have school buses sharing that road. There's quite a few different schools that use that to get there. There's several schools like Centerville that are right on the road, and essentially on the job end of it, you know, they only say they're creating like 17 jobs on site, and some of those are going to be Cemex employees brought in from other areas. The jobs that they're talking about is maybe as many as 40 jobs, which isn't a lot. A lot of those are going to be truck driving jobs, which means if they're driving truck to haul aggregate, it's going to be the same guy that was hauling it for maybe Vulcan last week is going to be hauling a load for Cemex this week. They plan on having a 250,000 gallon storage tank for recycling the water that they use. When they crush the rock, there's a lot of dirt in with the rock, so they use water to wash it to get just the clean aggregate out, and they run that water off into a pond and let the dirt and stuff settle out of it, and then they reuse the water off the top so that they don't use as much water. The problem there is you keep washing the aggregate and taking all the dirt and the pollution off of it and storing it in the tank in the bottom of that sludge, because you keep having it drain down, and if there's any leakage, or if that breaks, or if it overflows, you get a lot of water, rain, it all is going to go down the hill and into the canal, and it's a major concern. Another concern on the water is that they've drilled several wells right next to the canal that they are using for getting their water. Well, the problem is these canals don't have a cement barrier, so they actually would have water leaching out of the canals over to where their wells are, which of course means they're going to get a really good flow rate on their well. It's a Choi-Numni tribe that is in this area, and they have a lot of historic areas on that mountain. In this whole area is a historic area for them, and they have a lot of artifacts and burial sites and things that you know, they don't want to have destroyed. There's several species, some of them are endangered species, on the mountain in the area. They have done studies and said, oh, we didn't see any. They went up there one time, one out of the whole 12 months of the year. They went up there in a time when you wouldn't find the particular kind, like the salamander that's up there. There's a salamander that is only shows up basically once or twice a year when the pools are you know, in enough water in them to actually bring them out.
Sierra Gateway Trust is basically an organization. It's a grassroots organization that was formed with the goal to support and to get qualified the Fresno County Scenic Highway 180 as a California State Scenic Highway, as well as providing educational and informative information on eastern Fresno County and the area around the Scenic Highway, and represents a variety of levels leading to the Scenic Highway and also to the Kings Canyon National Park.
Do you know approximately how many visitors we get that come through this area that go that direction?
There's approximately 850 to 1 million. Our concern is the impact it will have on the visual and the aesthetic view shed that we have for the Scenic Highway. We're extremely concerned that this will have a detrimental effect on the ability of this highway to become a California State Scenic Highway.
They have not identified the means by which they can meet the ozone air quality standards, nor can they meet the particulate standards for particles of 2.5 microns or less. The last I checked, they were out of compliance there also with the Clean Air Act, the Federal Clean Air Act. And of aggregate production that's been required over the last several years has actually been falling rather than rising. The need has been falling because, of course, the construction industry is in a big funk right now. So I mean, I did not take any of that into account, which means that my arguments are even more valid. You know, if you would take that recession argument into account, you know, the need would be far less. You have, my numbers show, not my numbers, but the numbers that anybody can have access to and manipulate show, that you have 20 to 30 years to figure out how to deal with the aggregate need, say 50 or 60 years from now, in a way that's environmentally wholesome, okay? That you have that amount of time to figure out how to do this in the right way. And the main argument for the mine is the aggregate need in Fresno County. So I started thinking, well, is there really a real need for Fresno County, say for the next 2 to 3 decades? So what I did was I simply began to look at the numbers that are publicly available in any of the California geological reports or even out of the draft EIR. I put those numbers together and found out for the next 2 or 3 decades, there really is not a crying need for aggregate in Fresno County. In fact, there's going to be a surplus. It's going to be in existence for 100 years. So if you approve that mine, starting in however many years it takes them to get going, for 100 years, for a full century, you're going to be adding to the air pollution in Fresno County in an area where it's already got some of the worst air in the country. And to my way of thinking, given the fact that you don't have a crying immediate need for the aggregate and that you have time, decades, to figure out how to do this right, there's just no excuse for not taking that time to figure out how to do it right. The current production of aggregate, considering all the mines that currently exist, plus the 1 or 2 mines that might come online in the next, say, 5 years, is something like 8 to 9 million tons of aggregate per year. In 2020, the projected need for Fresno County would be something like 7.1 to 7.5 million tons per year, based on the population trends, which are conservative, not accounting for the recession. So even with those numbers, you can see that you have something like 1.5 million tons of surplus per year in aggregate production.
I understand that 95% of all bumblebees are gone. That could very well be. If you look at the monocropping that has happened around here, you know, it's kind of like you have this one bloom and it's over and now there's nothing. So the scorched earth kind of a thing where you know, you don't have perpetual blooming. So naturally, you know, have they died or did they just go to a better place, you know, where there's better foraging? And this painting in particular, actually, I called up all my buddies that are artists, and I said, look, we got to go start painting this mountain. And we started about, when we first heard that Cemex was thinking of cutting out a section of Jesse Morrow down about 200 feet and coming across and changing the whole shape of it, I found that almost inconceivable. In fact, I thought they must be fooling themselves. There is no way the public is going to tolerate the entry to our national parks being desecrated. We're not going to have a gravel mine with a cement plant on top with, with 1,000 light bulbs. They have to dynamite perpetually. I said, there's no way, they don't have a chance of ever seeing this through. But, today in the climate that we have, people are not thinking about the next generation. They're so worried about right now and can we make money, and money seems to be the driving force. And before I realized it, it suddenly became a very serious threat. So my thinking was, if we can paint this and get a lot of artists out there to paint it and put those paintings before the public, they'll realize what they have. No one even knew what Jesse Morrow Mountain was, where it was, what it was. It is the most visible foothill from the city of Fresno. And it's a little bit like if you walk into my house, you see there's a front. What do you find at the front? A flower garden. That's my entry. You have to go between these beautiful, sweet-smelling flowers. This is the sort of the entry. We have Jesse Morrow Mountain on one side, and we have Mount Campbell on the other. And in between that U, there's a U shape that is right here. 180 goes right behind this barn and zigzags its way up into the mountains here. And isn't that a pastoral scene? I mean, people want to get away to a place of nature and beauty, and they don't want to go past a dynamite blasting area to get there. What we are is the fruit basket of the nation. That's what we are. So we have a blossom trail. It's not quite what people would wish it to be. And because farmers have traditionally sprayed all the vegetation underneath the trees, so you end up with these pink blooms, and they're only on the tree for 2 weeks at best. And it's so much more beautiful if we could understand that blossoming can go year-round, and it should. But the Blossom Trail was maybe our first attempt at saying this is a part of who we are. Now we have the Fruit Trail. Oh, that's getting closer. We have the national parks. We should never, I think, begin to ruin our front or backyard. Nothing against international goodwill, but I personally, I just don't think we need to sell out our landmarks, to international companies for quick and short-term profits. Rock is one of the greatest conductors of sound you'll ever have. It's better than water, and you can hear somebody tapping something under water easily from a long distance. Solids move sound much better than air. So the thought that it's going to be muffled, you're going to hear it.
Our original land base is all the way up to the Kings River, all the way down, which would be past Sanger, past Academy, all the way down to Reedley, past Kingsburg, and up here on the borderline of what is called the Bear Mountain. That was that's the original land base of the Choctaw people. This is where we lived for generations. Mind you, we were here long, long before the oncoming of the Europeans. And in this site, this valley right here where we're sitting, this is known as Clark's Valley. This was one of the biggest campgrounds of our people. This whole valley, all Choctaw lived here. We had winter home, summer home. When the weather came bad, we went upriver and lived at that big campgrounds above the Kings River to be above the water. But a lot of our sacred sites, they all tie together. This is just one of many. Above Pine Flat Dam, looking northeast of here, our burial grounds sit in there. They're there. There are other numerous sites that we did ceremonies at there. And then right here is the one we call Jug Rock. This was a big ceremonial site. This is where what we call untrue, our doctor, what they call shaman. This is where they would gather before spring and do big ceremony here, of it right here, right over this little knoll at Jug Rock. And then we have what we call Wahalish. That's the original name for it. Wahalish meaning in our language crying mountain. That also ties to what is next to it, which is Campbell Mountain, which is Watoki Mountain. That right there was one where we had one of the biggest battles for the Choctaw fought the oncoming of, we fought the Spaniards, we fought the conquistadors, we fought the gold rush, we fought the cavalry. That was the last biggest battle there. And you know, those sites all flow and tie together. This particular one here, the original name on the county maps was, they named it Choinumni Mountains. This was a fasting place for our young men who were going to fast on the mountain, one of many here in this site. Also, you know, they had we had burials along the mountain. There are other areas in there that we won't disclose to anybody. We've always been very lucky to have good homeowners and good ranchers who have always worked with us. They know what's there, and they don't go in there, but they know that there are other ceremonial places, caves that are in there. But we know what the purpose are. Talked to us before about it, but like they said, we won't disclose it to anybody else. We respect that. And who better to take it from was the Indian people. We didn't speak the language. To us, land meant more to us than what they wanted. They wanted the gold. They wanted land. They wanted the land. One owner wants land as far as he can see. Our people weren't like that. We made use of the land. The land meant a lot to us, for our people. But, you know, the other world, the Europeans, didn't see it like that. Those that came. What happened was later on, the government, as they started coming across the America, and this is well documented about how they took the land from the Indian people. It happened here in California as well. Well, when they came here, they put us on, or left us where we were, put up the borders, made treaties with our people, told us that, you know, you stay in your original land base and, you know, you'll live there forever. Well, it didn't work out like that. They eventually knew that, you know, you had the oncoming of the gold rush, you had all kinds of other things. We have the beautiful Kings River that flows naturally. You know, eventually they wanted it all. So what they did was they came and said, now we want your land. We drove you to the rock, now we want the rock. So that's what's really happened to us. They came and they built the Pine Flat Dam. They made, just really took the land for hardly no value because, you know, once again, Indian people didn't look at the land as that. The only ones that stayed on the original land base was our family. To this generation, we've been on the land base. Our oldest brother lives in our original property where my mom and dad lived here in Tybee Valley. This one here is currently owned by maybe 3 or 4 different people. And each time they've put up the fences where that property is. Cemex has purchased half of that mountain, and the other half belongs to different individuals. And the property that they're on is what they're going to say they're going to mine. But we all know eventually they're going to want to buy the whole thing and take the whole thing down. What's hard is to have people understand what is sacred to Indian people. And the only understanding that I can try for non-native people to equate that to is if you have a Christian church that has been there for decades, or a synagogue or a Buddhist temple, you know, they're protected, they're respected, and they don't go and destroy them. At least they try not to. Doing what they're doing is equivalent to that for us. The Indian way of spirituality is the most simplest form of spirituality. The Indian people respect everything. They respect the earth, the land that we walk on, the rivers, the water, and the sky. And to try and make people understand what the relationship is for us to the area is really hard. A lot of people look at it as just being rock. It is not just rock. You know, we come, we bless the mountain. Our grandmother, who is 104, came 2 years ago. One of the young cousins brought her out, and she came and she prayed for the mountain. And in her declining years, when our mother was getting ready to pass away, she's only been gone about 1 year and 7 months now, asked us to keep up the struggle and the battle to protect our sacred site. They don't realize what's at stake. There's going to come a point in this whole environment you call Mother Earth that our people are not going to be able to heal it again. The Choinumni people were always a strong people. We weren't given to all of the anthropologists and archaeologists that came long ago and wanted us to give them all our information. We were probably one of the only tribes that didn't do that. That's why there's not a lot written about our people. We don't have a church. A lot of people tell us, you guys are heathens, you don't have a church. Well, our way is, Sky is our church. We don't have to be in a church to pray. We can pray anywhere.
To the public, you know, it's hard for them to understand. There's all these sites that, like Jug Rock, Wahalish, right below Campbell Mountain is Waitoki Lake. Those were all big campsites, especially at Waitoki Lake. That's where our last chief, Chief Waitoki, and a lot of other people were massacred there by some soldiers and people from the little community there. We're all in this one fight together for our sites.
This TCT1851 at yahoo.com. What I would like for the public to know in this struggle is, you know, it's hard to make or to have people understand what is at stake. What is at stake is not just about our sacred site. It's important to us, yes. It is extremely important to us. But the ongoing of this project is going to be detrimental for those generations to come. Not just our children, but to all mankind that walk this earth. Indian people are protectors of the earth. We are protectors of mankind. We are protectors of our friends and our neighbors. I want people to understand it's not just about us. It's about all of mankind, because what they will expose in there is going to affect the overall environment of this community and all of the community. If they hit a vein of selenium, if they hit a vein of other diseases that have been buried for generations, what happens once they start mining, the air quality starts to pick up much worse. Here in just the radius of 10 miles is a very high content, a high number of asthmatic people.
This fight, you know, it's not just a fight for the Indian people. You know, this is like this is for the earth. You know, we're all earth people, and we don't have much left that's not tainted. You know, we need to protect what we have, you know, and it just so happens this site is part of our history, but it's also part of the history of people around us and our neighbors.
We had tribal clans long ago, and when we would hold council meetings, each family had heads of clans. The language was all done in tribal language. But, you know, because of generations and time, and because, you know, the oncoming of the government, they want everything in writing. Our word is not good anymore. For our people, that's how for a long time our people, our grandmother, Julia Davis, she was leader of our tribe for a lot of years. And what she said, you know, we all followed. But we always know who we are, where our land base is, our history, our language. But as time went on, you know, and we had treaty with the government, we were never a terminated tribe, But you know, we're like everybody else. We would like to have that federal status, but they never gave us federal status. And in a way, I think it's kind of good, because we're probably the most sovereign tribe of people there is. The government doesn't tell us what to do. We are a sovereign nation. We are a sovereign nation because we govern ourselves. But it's truly an honor to be able to walk before my people and say, hey, we gave it our best shot. We honored our elders, and we're going to honor them and carry this on for generations to come. I hope, and you know, we pray for everybody every day, every human being that walks this earth. And we'll pray for those people that are going to make this decision regarding our sacred site, that they'll use what was given to them wisely, because those decisions that they have been empowered to do is going to have a great impact, not only on our people, but all people that walk this earth. And I want them to understand that. I want them to open their minds and their hearts to what's to come, because this time around, we may not be able to heal this for them.
We may be at odds with decisions or what other people think. She said always pray for them and pray for their mind, and they'll have a good heart. And when I pray, like when I get up and pray this morning, pray for a good day for this interview, but I also pray to all my friends in all the 4 directions of the earth. And when I do that, I ask Creator for protection from Mother Earth, protect all the creatures that we share this planet with, and then, you know, everybody that we've met. And I do that when I pray to all 4 directions, so everybody that I know and have contacted, you know, I pray for them. But I always include that prayer for those people that are going to make this decision on this mountain and also on other sites.
None of us are against sand and gravel and against progress and that sort of thing, but I think we have to have the wisdom and the knowledge to site these locations in proper areas. And there are alternatives to the Cemex project. Growan, for example, has a project that's on the drawing boards right now. They've done an environmental assessment. It's owned by local people. It does not impact the river, does not impact the viewshed. And so from a science point of view, I just see this as having some tremendous environmental impacts that cannot be mitigated, and there are viable alternatives that will have some impacts but can be mitigated. The Los Angeles Times was out here about 3 months ago, and they saw it as not a regional issue but a national issue. And Cemex really took issue to that statement that it is a national issue, but it is a national issue. There are people from all over the world coming up to see Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. We get upwards of 30 to 40 different countries represented on an annual basis coming to view or coming here to stay in our bed and breakfast as they go up to the national park. So it is a big issue. It is a big issue not only for the region but for the state as a whole in terms of how we want to characterize ourselves as a society and as a region, and how we want to portray ourselves to the rest of the world. So just visualize this person that just came from Great Britain. They landed in San Francisco. They're eager to get up to Sequoia Kings Canyon National Parks. They've heard about it their entire lives. And the first thing they see is Jesse Morrow Mountain, which is part of the Sierra Nevada range. And what they're going to see is a denigrated mess, and just God help them if they get in an accident with a double tractor trailer. But that's how they're going to see America and how we treat our precious resources.
In the final analysis, while it's true that these people are fighting for the quality of the air, the water, the land, the viewshed, and protecting the traditional lands of the Choi-Numni tribe, these issues are in fact secondary to what's really at stake in the fight for Jesse Morrow Mountain. Across the broad sweep of history, people, tribes, and even nations come and go, but the land remains. And how we treat that land and how we serve as its stewards defines our values and tracks our impact as a species. To paraphrase an ancient American Indian proverb, We do not inherit this sacred ground from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. It's been several months since our last interview on the proposed mining of Jesse Morrow Mountain. Can you give us an update on where the project is at this point?
Yeah, they've come out with the final EIR, which is the Environmental Impact Report, and it's gone to the Planning Commission, and they didn't complete it at that Planning Commission, so it's going to go back to another Planning Commission meeting shortly, within a few weeks maybe. They came back with a different proposal, Cemex did, which is they call it the Ridgeline Preservation alternative, and it's a reduced alternative 4, which was in the DEIR. They are essentially trying to make it look like they're giving up a lot. They've cut it from a 100-year project to a 50-year project, which basically, if you get the mine on the mountain in a 50-year project, you're going to be extending it, because once you're there, it's real easy to extend the mine. They've also cut the production from 2 million tons per year to 1.5 million tons per year, which is still almost the same amount when you look at a daily, what the environmental impact is on a daily basis. They are trying to make it seem like they have given up a lot to try to get it to go through, and that's where we are at this point now.
Do you think the reduced alternative 4 is a better project than the previous one?
No, actually, in a lot of ways it's worse. It has basically all the same negative impacts, the significant and unavoidable things that were in it before, like the aesthetics, the traffic, the impact on the Native Americans, the impact on the wildlife and the plants, the endangered species. All of that is still there, and they've added to it because now they're going down 200 feet. Instead of taking out the ridge line, they are starting at about 150 feet below the level of the ridge line at Slow's Point there, and they're going down to 200 feet below ground level, and that creates a whole new set of problems, because when you're bench mining down to that, the type of blasting you're using is blasting off the bench sideways basically. But when you get down into a pit like that where you're in a quarry, you are actually blasting down in the bottom of the pit, and the problem is that there's an aquifer under there, and so when you're blasting your way down to 200 feet, you are likely to damage the aquifer, if not collapse it, or you might even run into it, because if you get down deep enough, you may run into the groundwater. And the problem there too is that in order to blast in a pit, the floor of a pit, they have to use heavier explosives, bigger explosives, and that can cause more seismic problems, which could affect the groundwater, or it could affect local wells. It also could affect the canal, which is only about 800 feet away. And when you figure you're 200 feet below ground surface level, that's almost 100 feet below what Highway 180 is over there. So you're talking a big crater that they're going to be creating over there. And the problem you get into with that is you can create a lot of pollution even if you don't run into it, because you've got all the pollution from blasting and trucks, the oil and fuel and all that kind of stuff, and then you get rainwater in there that fills it up, and you have to do something with that. Basically, they're going to have to pump that contaminated rainwater out, and where are you going to put that too?
I see. Is there another alternative source for aggregate if they don't mine Jesse Morrow Mountain?
Yeah, since they started the project, there's been several things that have happened. They've okay to mine. It's gone through in Madera that can handle a lot of aggregate, and there's one more that's in the works in Madera also. And the biggest thing that's happened is they have approved a railroad distribution center in Selma, which is more centrally located actually than what Jesse Morrow is. And the advantage there is that you don't do any mining. It doesn't have, it almost eliminates all of the problems with mining Jesse Morrow Mountain. The traffic problem goes away, all of the things that are associated with the air quality and that type of thing, because you're bringing it in by rail. And when you bring it in by rail, you can ship a ton of aggregate or any other product almost 500 miles on a gallon of fuel when you figure what a train uses. And they bring it into Selma there. They have room for a concrete batch plant as well as an asphalt recycling plant there too. And the big advantage there is that they can bring in pretty much as you want in that situation. They can bring in 100 cars a day. They can unload 100 cars a day. Each rail car holds 100 tons of aggregate. So you're talking a lot. That's more than what the production of Jesse Morrow would be in a year. And if you needed more aggregate, you could expand that type of facility or build another facility like that along the rail line. You wouldn't have to blow up the mountain to do it. The other advantage is that you can get it pretty much right away, because the owner of the distribution center has already talked to mines within a 400-mile radius that will sell to him and bring it in. So he could have it ready and going without having the lag time that you do with a mine, like it takes several years to get a mine up and running. So there's a lot of advantages there and basically almost none of the disadvantages.
Make your voice heard. Contact your Board of Supervisors today.
You can hear, listen closely. You'll hear Holly's cry.